Don't hurry. Next one, please. No, it's perfect, perfect. Yes. Well, I don't know if all of you knows, but this is the motto of of UNESCO. The goal of UNESCO is to build peace in minds of men and women around the world through science, education, culture, and communication. The idea of peace implies diplomacy. Diplomacy is the art of negotiation to avoid war. So that's main issue. And the idea through science, education, and culture, in this case, science specifically, implies science diplomacy. When UNESCO was created, nobody talked about science diplomacy. Science diplomacy is a notion that it started to go around between 2012, more or less, through a paper that AAAS published. And we start talking about science diplomacy as a new field of action, let's say, not started yet. So UNESCO realized that it was doing science diplomacy since the beginning. So next, please. And as many of you were mentioned, science diplomacy implies three different aspects. Implies diplomacy for science, science for diplomacy, and science in diplomacy. In this case, we can use science cooperation to improve international relationships between countries. That means using science for diplomacy. We can also use diplomacy for science to facilitate international science cooperation. And we can use science in the decisions on how we can deal international agreements and how is the position in these situations. So for the first issue, we know that that's not the idea of the CERN itself. They do science, but since UNESCO supported CERN, supported CESAM initiatives, implies using science for diplomacy, because science open channels to dialogue between countries that they are not talking in another situations, but they are doing it in science. So that's good examples of how we can use science to improve diplomacy relationships. Other examples are how we can use diplomacy for fostering science. These are names of different programs that UNESCO has. The International Oceans Council, I lost with these all acronyms. MAVIS, mainly the bioreserve sites around the world. We have IHP, International Hydrological Program. There are different initiatives that through diplomacy, we can foster science cooperation to build up new knowledge. And another case, we can use scientific evidence, data, and so on to inform policy, to take in science diplomacy better agreements based not in only in political strategies or different kind of ideas, but in science data. For all of that issues, one first thing that we have to improve is the capacity building of our science diplomacy staffs. That means giving diplomacy skills for science and giving science knowledge for diplomats. And I don't know what is this, but we can go next. So why UNESCO is trying to renew this new science diplomacy agreement? Well, And that's for me the key issue. And it was in the air this morning. We are facing different crises, different kind of crises. We are facing also global challenges. We are living new technologies that are based on science. And all of these things have two characteristics in common. One is that they are global. What I mean is health is a global problem now. If someone in China gets the flu, we have to take care here in Brazil because in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we are going to receive this new flu. Everything that is happening around the world now is a global concern. It's not anymore a problem of our own. For sure, we can have our own goals and our own limitations to deal with these problems, but these problems became global, and they are going to become more global. And on the other hand, they are strongly, and they're becoming more strong related with science. Why? Because on one hand, we have, for instance, technologies that are more and more based on science. In the past, technologies not necessarily were related to knowledge on science to improve, but now they are becoming more and more related to science advancement. Let's see neurotechnologies, let's see artificial intelligence, as we say. We can see also genetic edition. We can also talk about nanotechnologies. They are all based on science knowledge, and you need science skills to deal with these new technologies. So to be part of the new world that are shaping these new technologies implies that you need science skills. If you don't have these science skills, probably that means that you are going to be outside this new world. But at the same time, the skills of this new science and the possibility to deal with this new science is not anymore available for one country alone. Maybe there are 2 countries around the world that could still think that they can do it alone, but all the other countries, it's not only a problem of Latin America, it's a problem of the world. We need to cooperate to get into this new knowledge and to produce and use and learn about this new knowledge. So we need diplomacy. And on the other hand, this global challenge also need new solutions that need to be more innovative. This innovation needs to be based in these new technologies, and these new technologies are based on science knowledge. So the new world that we are seeing in the next years are basically based in the needs of new science diplomacy, in the needs to make agreements to go on science, and we need more diplomacy and more science. So what are the key objectives of the UNESCO in this new science diplomacy initiative that we are trying to launch to the world? First, we need to define this new global framework for science diplomacy. We need to improve the knowledge of what we are talking about when we talk about science diplomacy. For that, we need to build a new basis of knowledge, how to produce a good science diplomacy strategy, what means for a country, for a city, for an institution to be involved in science diplomacy. We need to enhance science diplomacy skills and capacity of our citizens, our functionaries, our scientists. We need to develop national and different levels of government strategies. It's not the same, the UNESCO strategy for science diplomacy that for Brazil or for Argentina. or for Sao Paulo as a state. You can build different strategies, but you need to include in your development strategies the dimension of globally, so diplomacy, and the dimension of science. And you have to go make both of them to talk each other. We need to foster spaces for science diplomacy dialogue, like this one. We need to improve and to create new spaces to dialogue in how to deal with the new challenge and how to produce new knowledge. And so in this area, from the UNESCO point of view, in terms of what are our challenges that we are dealing and we are trying to include in our science diplomacy strategy, are basically these four areas. One is open science, as we were talking about, and I thought it was Costa Rican ambassador talking about the importance of sharing knowledge. It's basically that's the basement of open science and the recommendation of open science of UNESCO. We have to learn how to do it. We have to improve our skills. We have to invest more money, but we have to start bridging the spaces between countries to share knowledge. We need to deal with these new and emerging technologies. We need more agreements of ethics of how to do it. We need to open space in science diplomacy to know what are the consequences and what are the needs and what are the possibilities of these new technologies. We already were working in artificial intelligence. Now we are started working in neurotechnologies. That is going to be a big challenge. Third, the third area that we think there is needed science diplomacy is science in crisis. The humanity faces more and more sudden crises through wars or through natural disasters, and that in many cases damage scientific facilities, damage scientific data centers, and make menace for the science activity. So we need to start thinking how diplomacy and agreement, inter-country agreement, could help to avoid that kind of situations. Fourth one, in terms more of challenge, we need to start thinking about these shared resources. Someone mentioned this morning about the oceans, the Antarctic. I think the Chilean ambassador was about the oceans, the outer space, the Antarctic, these different natural resources that belongs to all of us, but they need to more knowledge, more scientific research to know how to deal well with these resources and to avoid situation of conflicts in the shared resources. We can talk from economist view, from common goods in that sense. Next. Well, that's not next steps. That were the steps that we already did. We have had in late March international meeting in UNESCO to launch this new agreement. We produced there a declaration in Paris of this, and we're inviting all countries to join us in this process of enhance and to start making science diplomacy strategies that push international cooperation. Yes, thank you. That's all.